Jalen Brunson, he went in and, like you said to me, burned our crops, took our women.
Yeah, he was like Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan us out there.
Like, Genghis Khan was sitting up somewhere just smiling down. He was like, wow.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Bright Now podcast. We're recording this Saturday, December 16th at 2:06 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Dash, and I'm the Walter Davis to my Larry Nance, my co-host, the Trail 3 God right here, right next to me, in-season pod, TJ. How you doing today, brother?
Live and in person for the second time in the Bright Now podcast history. So excited to be back out here, man. A little bit of a rough week from a Suns perspective, but
Absolutely.
Still want to wrap up talking about the in-season tournament. No, it's about a week out from that championship wrapping up, but obviously going to want to touch on that a little bit, just what it means for the league looking forward. Obviously, we're going to have to talk about some of those Suns games from this week. Had the Warriors and then back-to-back games against the New York teams that didn't go quite as well as we probably would have hoped. And then we're going to round it off with our favorite segment, 4 scores in 7 days ago.
Hell yeah, there we go. And then, as you can probably tell, what the fuck am I doing in this? I did graduate college this last Tuesday. Got my bachelor's. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. So I had to flex on everybody real quick. Let them know that I know about what I'm talking about when it comes to political science bullshit. Doesn't mean anything. But
majored in podcasting.
Exactly. So let's dive right into it. In-season tournament. We're a bit late on this, but that's just naturally how the podcast goes. Since we do record every Saturday. TJ. You were damn right about your Lakers prediction, just right off the bat. And I want to make sure that you do get your flowers, that you know ball. Because you did tell everybody that the Lakers get fouled the most and get the least calls on their end. They foul the least, and that the Pacers foul the most. And I feel like that's exactly what happened in that game, right?
Yeah, no, that's really what it felt like it came down to. It definitely came down to that foul differential. The Pacers committing 33, the Lakers committing 25. The Pacers did make a couple more free throws than them. That just kind of comes down to the percentages. But just even non-shooting fouls that the Lakers were able to draw, like that just keeps the defense on their toes. They can't get in a rhythm. You're just having longer and longer possessions. It almost turns into an NFL game like that where, hey, if you have the ball for longer, your chances of winning are going to be way up. One of the other keys that we touched on too was the Lakers just had to be competitive when LeBron left the court. And Anthony Davis showing up the way he did definitely helped with that. With LeBron on the floor, they're a plus 19. With him off, they were only a minus 5, which is pretty solid as far as the Lakers have been this year.
You'll take it at this point in the season.
100% you'll take that. And then the points in the paint is really where it felt like the game was won for the Lakers. 86 points in the paint for them versus 44 for the Pacers. So just getting to the rim, putting a ton of pressure on it, out-shooting them. It was really just a masterclass, and specifically from Anthony Davis, just absolutely putting on a show.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying as a Suns fan. I'm not the biggest Lakers guy in the world, but Anthony Davis can absolutely fucking decide when he wants to be the best player on the floor. You know that Drake and Lil Yachty meme when he's on the computer, like, oh, it's AD when he realizes he could be the best player on the floor. And speaking of best players on the floor, not to overreact on this game, but man, it's kind of a hard argument to make right now. It depends on what you like for the all-time conversation, but LeBron James is looking to be the best player to ever touch a basketball, beating Michael Jordan. And I understand if you want to go off a peak, but longevity, good God almighty, when it comes down to nut crunching time, LeBron James figures it the fuck out, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was it feels super poetic that LeBron wins the first in-season tournament MVP.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of reminded Halliburton that he's still the basketball IQ king when it comes to all this. He's just the king of the NBA in general still. Like, he's not giving up that title until he retires. He can get to the basket whenever he just decides to. There's nothing that can stop him or even deter him when he wants to. And just picking his spots, making great passes. His stat line maybe wasn't the best in the world. Obviously, AD finished with 41 points and 20 rebounds with 4 blocks. Like, that's just ludicrous. But LeBron with 24 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. Not great, but it did feel like he was quarterbacking everything. And he must have been. This is what we've been waiting on from AD. So I imagine that Bron might have been in his ear before this, like, "Hey man, I'm 38. I could use some. I could use some help."
Bro, it had to be. And then you saw like the celebrations at the end of the game. I don't know if I've ever seen AD that hype. I mean, even when they won the bubble, when he hit the Kobe shot, I don't know. Yeah. He was saying, "I'm fucking him," slapping his chest, looking like he was a monster out there. And it really did look like he was a monster.
Mean mugging everywhere, even if it looks a little silly sometimes. It looks a little silly in slow motion, but that's everybody. But I was beyond impressed with him. And, you know, let's preface it. The Pacers aren't known for their interior defense or necessarily having somebody that can bang down low. Outside of Miles Turner, there's really nobody on the team that even has a chance of guarding somebody like Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I like Isaiah Jackson a lot, but there's nothing that he's doing in that paint.
So it's just a perfect storm for a game like this, and it's what NBA fans, Lakers fans specifically, LeBron fans, that's what they've been waiting for. You need AD to take the reins from LeBron and be the best player on the team, which we just hadn't seen so far. Last week's episode, we talked about how AD's just consistently inconsistent.
Yep.
So we'll see how these next few games go for him. You know, I think he's already missed a game or two since the in-season tournament championship, which, whatever, the load management thing, it's never going to go away. But the Lakers really reminded everybody that they're still going to be a problem in the West with all that size.
Yeah, and two things I wanted to add on to the Lakers side of things before we really talk about the Pacers is that it feels like they did just a phenomenal job at being, you know, bigger, stronger, higher IQ, more methodical when it came down to it. Use that physicality against Tyrese Halliburton's light frame, giving him, I think it was only around like 20 points, 24 points or something like that, less than 10 assists. And, you know, for Tyrese Halliburton, that's a below average game, just by and large. Another thing I wanted to point out was the 3-point shot attempts and how the Lakers just took what was given to them. When we looked over the stats, you know, it ended up with Indiana having to live and die by the 3 towards the end of the game. And while, you know, the Pacers shot slightly better than the Lakers from 3-point land, 24% compared to the Lakers 15%, they shot 28 more threes than the Lakers. So just that alone, it shows, you know, you can still win games by being a 3-point shooting team. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, the bigger, stronger, faster team is going to cut out on top.
Yeah, and that's a problem that I think we're seeing with the Suns a little bit too, when you are a jump shooting team and you're just a little bit colder than you normally are, because that's a very real thing where it's, hey, shots just across the board aren't falling. And once you see your teammates miss a handful, those thoughts can kind of creep in and impact your own shots. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something that has a factor. So when you can rely on scoring 86 points in the paint, like you do that at all costs, and it's you're just that much harder to beat.
100%. And like, I mean, I don't know if we want to transition to the Suns right away, but speaking about that 3-point shooting, it did look like Tyrese Halliburton came in at the end needing to be the hero. And of course, that's the guy that you want to be to step up and do it. But man, we kind of feel like we've seen some hero ball recently with the Suns, right? I mean, even looking at last game, Devin Booker, we're the biggest stands in the world, as we've said before, but man, he was trying to do a lot last night, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues. We mentioned it. We've talked about this for weeks now. It seems like as of even watching these games this week, I'm just thinking all the same things we already have, where it's too loose with the ball, not passing the ball enough, period. We had some flashes of really great ball movement early on in the game where it's like all 5 guys touched it on a possession. But then when it comes down to the crunch time, it did seem like we were just settling for okay shots. And I'll take Booker shooting an okay shot over most anybody else on the team shooting a good one. But that's just, it's not necessarily a recipe for winning when you're playing against a guy like Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, who are the solid stars in this league. Like, those are all-star players.
Solidified. Absolutely. No, I agree. And before we get ahead of ourselves right here, I think we should, hit that rewind button a little bit. Let's go back to Monday, or is it Tuesday? I believe it's Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, the Phoenix Suns versus the Golden State Warriors. We'll talk about on the punch that everybody saw a little bit later down in the video. But, man, that game as a whole, even though the Suns came out on top with a win, with Josh Okogie even being hurt, man, it was just not a pretty sight whatsoever. What were some things that you saw from that game?
So we were in control for 45 minutes out of the 48, it felt like, 43, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But in the final, 3:56, we're up 13 points at that time, and it turns into a 3-point win. We lose that. We finish the game on the wrong end of a 20-10 run, which you're just not going to win a lot of games that way. Just head-scratching turnovers, people just rushing things. I think, Goodwin played really well in that game overall, but I know he had some kind of costly turnovers at the end.
Yes.
Booker, obviously, with quite a bit of turnovers as well. So that was the biggest thing with the Warriors game, just not being able to close, especially when, with all due respect to the guys on the Warriors, they have not been a good team so far. Clay and Wiggins both played terribly to the point where Steve Kerr just benched him in the fourth. and we're letting guys like Brandon Pajemski kind of punk us getting to the rim.
Yeah, no, and I kind of wanted to touch on the Pajemski stuff that him and Kuminga actually showed some flashes that I would like as a Warriors fan, but it's not the greatest thing in the world when you still got the contract of Wiggins and Clay on the team. Very disheartening from that point of view. From our point of view, even more disheartening, right? Like it feels like you said, Pajemski getting to the rim whenever he felt like it, coming out on top of the double-double, getting 10 rebounds, absolutely punking us a few times on those long threes that they ended up shooting, get the ORs on. I mean, it just wasn't a pretty sight. And it sucks because you talk to any Suns fans and it feels like the aura is the exact same. There's not a lot of positivity when you come out on top of a win against a historically great franchise such as the Warriors with a top 5 player in the league in Steph Curry. He had a little bit of a stinker himself, but man, there's only so much you can do.
And he got a good look at the end of the game.
He did.
That's a good look for Steph Curry. We closed out on it well, and he had to kind of adjust midair to get his feet squared. But like we've seen him hit that shots how many times now?
A shit ton of times.
It definitely was a little worrisome. We were watching that game together.
Yeah.
Kind of watched that collapse happen in real time.
Woo.
And it was just like we're just like holding our breath the whole time that last like 4 minutes.
Because it felt fairly comfortable going into the third. But, you know, as a Suns fan this season, you always have to have in the back of your mind the fourth quarter struggles, because how many times have we seen it? I mean, it goes all the way back to the Spurs game at I think it was the fourth game of the season.
That's the last time the Spurs won.
Yeah. Actually, they beat the Lakers last night. So shout out to Wemby.
There we go.
Shout out to Wemby, you know, taking the torch from LeBron, the best player in the world. No, I'm joking. But was anything else you wanted to touch on that Warriors game? It kind of just felt like, you know, I mean, like I said, we're going to talk about the punch later on in the video.
Yeah, we'll get to that stuff later. Those were just choking it away at the end, even with a win, like that's definitely that's a bad win for sure.
Yeah, and offensive rebounds continue to be an issue.
Absolutely. Giving guys just extra possession. That's a turnover and an offensive rebound are extra possessions. And when a team shoots more field goal attempts than you, like you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, that's honest. That's honestly how it goes. The second game of the week, one that was almost a little bit more demoralizing than even last night. We go against our former buddies Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
Great to see those guys get some love too.
Yeah.
A lot of social media clips going around too of them talking before the game. Like Cam Johnson's like, "Hey, my dog still lives out here.
Yep.
Like I come out and like see them. Got to see all your friends." It sounds like they loved being in Phoenix, so it was nice to see them. Obviously, you make that trade every time if you're going to get Kevin Durant, but I definitely miss having those guys around.
Man, yeah, just I don't want to use a 4-letter word, but the aura that those guys brought, the aura that those guys brought to the Suns was scrappiness. Yeah, you know, they played like hard-nosed defense.
Mikal Bridges might be the best cutter in the league.
Yeah,
like he was perfect for what we had. Again, I'll do that deal every time. I wish we could. Mikal was my favorite Sun in those past few years, even with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Just loved watching him play, the way he went to work. So happy for him getting his numbers in Brooklyn, but
man, he wasn't even the one that necessarily balled out. It felt like a completely evenly spread. I mean, you got Cam Thomas getting buckets out there. You had Finney Smith out there doing his thing. You had Spencer Dinwiddie.
Threes.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, who expected that? But that was unfortunately also the first game with the big three playing with each other. And man, can we just start out? Oh man,
I got their stats right here.
Talk to me.
So Book with 34 points, 12 assists, and only 2 turnovers.
He did his job.
Phenomenal. Especially getting those turnovers down, because there was those last few games where he was like 7, 8 turnovers, just being really loose with the ball. KD with 27, shot 9 for 18 from the field. He was 1 for 5 from 3, so that, you know, it balances those things out. He was just a net 0 as far as plus minus. And then Bradley Beal, 6 for 9. You'll be happy with that coming off a back injury, 14 points, but he was a minus 11 and just didn't look like he was really comfortable moving around out there. It was pretty bad defensively, just seemed slow. He had a couple of possessions where he like caught the ball on the wing and just held it for like 5 seconds before just swinging it, and that's just like kind of a possession killer when you got a 24-second shot clock coming down on you.
1,000%. And I kind of want to go back to what you said about the defensive side of the ball. Like you said, Bradley Beal was getting cooked. And whether he wasn't getting scored on necessarily, there was a ton of times where his guy was getting assists out there, or there was Spencer Dinwiddie going out there and getting dishes off when the double team came. And this was a point of emphasis at the beginning of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Bradley Beal said, hey, I know I'm not known as a defensive guy back in Washington. I was the guy that was scoring 30 points a game, trying to go for the scoring titles. But this is going to be a different me, and it sounds good, but I have yet to see at this point. And like you said, maybe that's because of the back injury, but do you see this improving at all? I mean, I don't know if you see it improving anymore, actually, after last night.
Yeah, you hope that it'll improve, but that's the scary part about back injuries and why. Like, I know it was fun to make jokes about Ben Simmons during that period, but when your back's hurt, like, you can't move right. Nothing is working right, and that's just a real big cause for concern, especially when he would come back for 2 games, miss again, and then obviously last night rolling his ankle really bad. At least it was a different injury.
Yeah.
But who knows? Now he's going to take a week off, nursing his ankle back to health, and his back's going to get back to tightening up. Like, you just got to hope that the training staff has a good plan in place to kind of keep him active and get him like to full strength as soon as we can.
No, for sure. And did you see his ass trying to get up and put on his shoe and tighten it? I was like, bro, you were just on the floor slapping the ground, rolling around. I was like, I'm sorry, they're not gonna let your injury-prone ass get back out on the court.
Respect to him for knocking down both free throws and sticking that out. But yeah, as soon as he went down, you knew, all right, he's not coming back tonight. I wouldn't have put him back in either. Like, obviously, it's just too risky. But we need him healthy as soon as possible because it's just been a chemistry issue. Like, we have no continuity, especially now with a Kogi going to be out for some time.
Yep.
Eric Gordon's missed games. Grayson Allen has missed games.
Yep.
For some reason, Nurkic, who I was probably the most worried about from a health perspective, has been fantastic so far. So knock on wood for that one coming soon. But we just need these guys to play together. Yeah,
and I kind of wanted to touch on with this Nets game is, a lot of Suns fans are going back to the, hey, as long as we got these guys healthy, when it comes to June, I'm totally okay with them missing some time. And I really want to be on that side of the argument. I really do.
I wish I could be.
I wish I could. But we saw in that game alone, the Nets aren't some busters, like, by any means necessary. But that's a team that we should beat.
They're a middle-class team in the NBA.
They are a middle class.
Fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine, but you have to be able to. And frankly, so are the Knicks.
Yeah.
The Knicks are not in the contender conversation with anybody. Like, if you listen to anybody that has inside sources or just knows a lot about the league, the Knicks are a fun team. They're going to probably make it to the second round of the playoffs, give a team a good run, but they aren't the upper echelon. It's not the Bucks, it's not the Sixers, it's not the Celtics. It's the middle class that has given us a lot of trouble.
No, it is. Let's spend these last 3 minutes on the Knicks right here. What did you see from that game? I mean, first of all, I'll say it. Jalen Brunson, he went in and, like you said to me, burned our crops, took our women, did everything. We just let it happen. We just watched him do it personally to us.
He was like Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan us out there.
Like, Genghis Khan was sitting up somewhere just smiling down. He was like, wow, my legacy lives on. No, it was another just disgusting performance. Bradley Beal plays 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Book, 28 points, 9 assists. Cool. Sounds great. He shot 11 for 26 from the field, minus 18. KD with 29, 10 for 21 with a minus 7. Overall, like, the Knicks made 6 more threes than us, 2 more field goals overall, 7 more free throws. Like, they just outshot us completely. And that was something that I also wanted to touch on as far as the Nets game, because that was a similar way that game broke down too, where, like, we out-rebounded them, did better in, like, the points off turnovers battle.
Yeah.
But we just didn't get as many threes up as them. And so that led me to want to see, like, what's our breakdown of shots compared to what, where do we take the highest percentage of our shots? And so obviously we take 30% of our attempts come from less than 5 feet away. But the problem is that ranks 25th in the league. So we don't get to the rim nearly as much as anybody else. But from 10 to 14 in that mid-range zone, we are 3rd in field goal attempts as far as percentage of our total shots taken there.
And that feels like it makes sense, right?
It does.
Like, we totally see all those guys.
Mm-hmm. The concerning part, though, is that we take 24% of our shots from past 25 feet. So that's deep. That's a lot of deep threes that we're taking. Eric Gordon's probably responsible for about half of those, just not wanting to toe up the line. I'm just begging him to please just he doesn't need to be that far back. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you catch it there. It's late in the shot clock. Just get it up. But toe the line, please.
I think it's funny. Can you talk about what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode? How Eric Gordon was one of our favorite, both of us, one of our favorite players growing up, whether he be on the Clippers or the Rockets, just consistently doing his thing.
He has been the most frustrating Sun as far as I'm concerned. And I know people were his scoring numbers are really good, but he throws some really bad passes. He's a a cone on defense to an extent. He'll put some effort in,
He's older,
moments, but he's just older, not as athletic.
So can I pose a question to you real quick?
Go ahead.
Do you think that Nurkic would be the guy if we never had DeAndre Ayton? Do you think you'd be most frustrated with him, or no? Do you think it'd still be Eric Gordon up to this point? Are you impressed with Nurkic without the foggy cloud of DeAndre Ayton left behind?
That's a tough one. Because it's just spurts where the Nurkic and Ayton have the same problem in some spots where like it's finishing around the rim.
Yeah.
Like Nurkic, and that was what like Trailblazers fans had said on Twitter when the trade happened. They're like, "Hey, good luck seeing him miss 3-footers all the time."
Yeah.
Which definitely feel like that's happening. And then the thing that pisses me off the most about Nurk is he'll miss a layup on one end and be kind of calling for a foul, and then doesn't get back on defense, and we give up an open three.
And it's not like his ass is fast anyway. It's not like he's going to be like, oh, didn't get the call, let me run. No, his ass is 290.
Yes. Like, you need to start getting over there as fast as you can, brother, because holy cow.
That brother needs help.
That brother does need help. It's just, it is frustrating when things like that happen because that's just an effort thing. His passing is amazing, so I think that definitely brings up that outside part.
The top percentile in the league for big men, for sure.
He had some really great passes early on in that Knicks game, like hitting guys on cuts that were like the give and go with Grayson Allen early on. So it's great that he looks for that kind of stuff and can get more people involved, but he can't really, he's not a rim protector by any means.
No,
and he's not really an effort guy.
Yeah, and like I said, if it wasn't for the foggy cloud that DeAndre Ayton left, I'd probably be a little bit more frustrated. But we put a lot of stock into these main three guys, and at the end of the day, if you're not going to have three of your guys playing out there, we're not going to win a ton of games, just flat out. And I know that there was speculation that just even having two of them out there would get us enough, but we're seeing that this West is so damn competitive. And I'm saying West, even though we lost the two Eastern teams, because our schedule is not looking pretty when we come up ahead of what's going on. I mean, we got that Christmas game against Luka coming up soon, and who's to say what goes on there? Those guys have been on a hot streak recently. Is there anything else you want to touch on with these last three games?
Yeah, I just think we can't guard good guards.
Yeah.
That's going to be that's one of our many Achilles heels, is that a guy like Jalen Brunson can score 50 on us. And obviously he played phenomenal, and it felt like he was destroying us, like we said. But like I checked the stats at halftime, he had like 17 points at the half, and I was like, how? Like it just happened so quick. It's so easy for him to score that it doesn't even feel like he's having the best game of his career, which by all like it technically is. I think that's his career high. Yeah,
and to add on to that point, it doesn't even go into us having the weakest guard defenders in the world, to be honest. But it kind of does come down to, as the guy we're talking about, Nurkic not being there available for help, because a lot of times in that Knicks game last night, Jalen Brunson was getting that quick first step going left right there, and there's just nobody at the rim. It's just way too late, way too hugged up on the guy in the quarter. Isaiah Hartenstein is not knocking down threes like he's fucking Karl Anthony Towns. Anything else you want to touch on, man?
Those are the main pieces. We still got plenty of time to get right. I would just much rather be a top 4 seed than a bottom 4 seed. And we're in the play-in mix right now.
Yeah.
So it's an uphill battle, and I know it's a marathon, not a sprint, but you still got to win the race.
1,000%. That was clean. I can't even add anything else on top of that. But coming up next, we do got one of our favorite segments on the show, and I'll be leading it today. 4 scores in 7 days in the past. Coming up next.
Thanks for letting me know that you don't fuck dogs.
Personally, I feel like that brother needed help.
And we're back, coming in with our favorite segment, 4 scores in 7 days ago. For those unfamiliar with this segment, I will be giving TJ 4 games from this past week, along with some key stats / storylines, and you pick which one is the juiciest, all right? And you know me, I love the advanced metrics and the big numbers, obviously, but I'm going narrative-based this week because there was a shit ton of stuff to touch on.
It was definitely a vibes week.
It was a vibes week for sure. And, with the constant sports media moving so fast, some of these might seem super distant, but this was all within the last week. So let me start us off. First, we have the Denver Nuggets beating the Chicago Bulls 114-106. where we see Nikola Jokic get ejected at the end of the second quarter for reportedly calling referee Mousa Dogner a motherfucker. In the city of Chicago, which, may I remind everybody, has the second highest population of Serbians in the entire world outside of Serbia. So before I read the other three, can we do a deep dive on this? I actually want to go that way. Let's go deep dive into each and every one of these, and you tell me at the end which one's the juiciest to you.
So I want to start this off. If anybody's seen, there's a old baseball movie called Bull Durham. Great movie, and it's about a minor league baseball player. And at one point, he gets ejected from a game. He gets thrown out for arguing with the ump, and it's because he calls him what they say is the no word for umpires. And in that case, it was cocksucker. He calls him a cocksucker, and people back home listening to the radio are like, oh. You must have called him a cocksucker. Everyone knows that's the no word.
That's the solidified word?
That's apparently.
That's hilarious.
Apparently. And so Jokic calls him a word that you're not technically supposed to call someone. Like, it's not nice. Mm-hmm. It's not a kind thing to say. But nobody came to see the refs. And this is the second time now that Jokic has gotten thrown out on the road to boos from the home crowd. Where they're like, he's the best player on the planet. We paid hundreds of dollars to come see him, saved up for who knows how long. And Jokic isn't one of those guys that takes like load management days. He plays as many games as he possibly can.
Yep.
So you can't put it on him. It's just a ref kind of going on a power trip. And that's just been a theme all season of stupid technicals coming out for guys like mean mugging. And it seems like the refs have gotten a lot softer this year.
Yep.
And
man, how about the hanging on the rim tech earlier this year?
Exactly. Things like that. Like, dude, come on. Like, that's what the fans want to see. It's the National Basketball Association. This isn't a high school game where you're trying to respect the integrity of the game, which I'm all for. Like, I don't think players should disrespect the game, and when they do, that's when those kind of penalties should come in. But it doesn't make sense to me for a referee to think that they're in a position to do that. Especially it was his first technical, right?
Yes, it was his first one. No warning.
If you want to tee him up, fine. That's it. Or give him the warning, hey, if you talk to me like that again, you're going to be gone. But it just doesn't make sense to me why why is Adam Silver not putting a phone call into the refs union and being like, hey, can you guys chill the hell out? Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And man, like just listening to Kenny Beecham's podcast, he was talking about how he had a work event with the Chicago Bulls that day, and that he got free tickets to go in there. And about half the arena, he says the only time this ever happens is against the Lakers or whenever LeBron comes into town. That half the crowd is going to be for this guy, and then half is going to be Bulls fans. He said half the crowd was about Nuggets fans, and that he was sitting next to Nuggets fans during the game, and that once he got ejected, he saw about 25% of the people leave in the entire stadium.
I bet.
Do you doubt them?
No, not at all.
He said, I thought they were just going to come get some popcorn and come back down.
No.
Never returned. They came there to see Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, they did not come to see whatever the hell the ref's name is. Like, I didn't even bother looking it up because I don't. He doesn't deserve it.
Feels like a terrorist. Let's not say his name. I don't want to give him any fame.
Yeah, exactly.
But I thought that was a really shitty moment just for the NBA product as a whole. Wasn't a big fan. And like I said, understand the assignment, refs. Understand the assignment. People are here to pay money to see good basketball.
And I've just been upset with the officiating. I mean,
as a
probably
whole?
Since for my whole life, to an extent, where the flow of the game can get so disrupted by the ticky-tack nature of some of these foul calls. Yep. And I wish I could see the numbers on what's like the average continuous amount of play that we even see now. Like, we saw that the MLB add the pitch clock to kind of speed up that pace of play. And it feels like these games this year, it feels like there's more TV timeouts, longer TV timeouts, more ads, like even during the game, things like that.
And like you're talking about when they're trying to sneak in those advertisements, it's very greedy. I understand it's a business at the end of the day, but holy shit, we can't even. I don't love watching people shoot free throws, but man, I didn't even see this dude hit his free throw. Did he hit it? Did he miss? Like,
exactly, because they want to run some FanDuel special. Yeah. No disrespect. Hey,
FanDuel. I actually like those ones. I'd rather watch those ones than that, but no, totally feel what you're saying there. Did you want to add on to anything on that first Chicago game?
No, I think that's the Nuggets still pull out the win. Mm-hmm. The Bulls are still in shambles. Doesn't seem like anybody wants to trade for Zach LaVine, and I don't really blame them. So we'll see. Alex Caruso is probably the best asset that they have on that team right now.
Most valuable.
A lot of teams need and want Alex Caruso. So we'll see where that ends up once we get to the trade deadline in February. But I think we're good to get to this next score. But that is a juicy one.
There we go. Secondly, we have the New Orleans Pelicans beating the first-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves 121-107. So let me preface, no Anthony Edwards. Definitely understand that. But this was the first game that Zion had played since all the comments about his weight in the in-season tournament were put on full display. He gave projected Defensive Player of the Year Rudy Gobert buckets with 36 points and 5 rebounds. So what are some initial takes on that one?
So, I mean, I even said it last week that Zion does look fat. I thought that all season where his one move still is to just go left and barrel to the lane. Whatever you want to do with that.
And the worst part about it is it fucking works a lot of the time.
It works a lot of the time. And he did it to Rudy Gobert. Like, Rudy Gobert's the best paint defender in the last 15 years of NBA basketball. So it's very impressive to see what he can do. And that's why I think people get so frustrated when he's not in shape. Because he was 13 for 17.
Yeah.
And that was just when he does play, he can put up those numbers so easily and so efficiently that it's really impressive. But that's why it's more annoying when it's like, hey, dude, like you need to get in shape so you can stay healthy, because we want to see you play basketball. We want you to be one of the top 10 players in the league. And it's just with these ups and downs, it just doesn't look like that is necessarily coming.
Yeah, and I have 2 questions I wanted to pose with you, branching off of this. First of all, do you think that, and this might sound ludicrous, tell me if I am, but does this look like closer to Zion's floor than Zion's ceiling? Not the specific game, but just how he's playing as a whole.
Absolutely. Like, it seemed like we'll always have those conversations about, like, is this the best timeline for this player's career?
Yeah.
Like a guy like Draymond in the perfect situation drafted
timeline.
to the Warriors. Like, that's just the best that he was going to be. And it does seem like Zion, people made the jokes when he got drafted to New Orleans, like, hey, there's a lot of good food out there. I saw some funny TikToks about after Stephen A. said the really mean stuff.
So that was my second question I was going to ask you. So first of all, with that, you do think it is closer to his floor than his ceiling? I think this is
definitely closer to his floor than his ceiling, just because he's going to get, the 36 points, 13 for 17. It's impressive that he did it against a great paint defense.
Doing it bagless.
Yes, exactly.
Doing it bagless.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So with that second question, as you're talking about the Stephen A. Smith quotes, how do you feel about, I feel like he's recently been on a rampage, especially just picking on Zion. His quotes about the every chef in New Orleans is looking for Zion.
He's going to eat the table.
Eat the table is one of the craziest remarks I have heard in the sports media outlets. How do you feel about that?
Stephen A. is just looking for his next Kwame Brown.
Yeah. He
just wants that other rant that's going to live on for decades, and he might have got it with that one.
Mm-hmm.
There were some funny jokes about people saying, a TikTok, somebody kind of making fun of Stephen A. saying this stuff, but being like, I mean this with no disrespect, but I went to a restaurant in New Orleans to get some gumbo, and they said, oh, we're all out. Zion was just here. And so I thought that guy hit the nail on the head, where it's like, come on, guys. Like, let's not be ridiculous. We don't need to be rude about this. Like, he's just a basketball player at the end of the day. And I want him to get healthy. I want him to lose some weight.
Yeah.
But it's going to be up to him to see if he can actually do it.
No, for sure. And just like with all the comments and stuff, I've been seeing people, addressing Stephen A. Smith directly, like, man, why did you say that? He said, well, that's what they told me. It's like, well, damn, motherfucker, you gotta tell them everything that they told you. Eat the table? Like, god damn, that's for clicks, it feels like. But
100%.
I don't know. Creating a bad player relationship is just, I don't think it's going to be a positive for Stephen A. in the long run. I know he's said before that he's closer to the end than the start of his career in the media, but hey, if he's going to go out with the bang this way, be the evil villain. I mean, he was that for a long time. I feel like he's one of the most, and then he turned to like one of the most beloved guys. He's looking like he's going back down on that villain path. But as a whole with the Zion stuff, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think he just, this game reminded people why we care so much and why why the Pelicans had a bunch of national TV games the last few years. So we want to see him play. We want to see him be the NBA it will be better if Zion is one of the elite guys, because he's just imagine like the young kids that want to go see him. He's such an electric player to watch.
Yeah, and going back to the game against the Suns, I mean, when he came at the end of that game and just absolutely last year, that shit was sick. And we love to see a guy who's fucking pushing 270, 280, 6'6", jumping as high as Derrick Jones Jr. skinny ass. Like, That's what we love. That's what we come to see. That's why Dr. J revolutionized the game. That's why Michael Jordan revolutionized the game. That's why we have Clyde Drexler we still think about. So I don't know, man. For me personally, I was just, really happy that he got a comeback win right here. But as we said initially, closer to his floor than his ceiling. We'll move on to the third four score, and that's going to be the Bucks getting a statement win over my Indiana Pacers, 140-126, after going out sad against them during the in-season tournament. Giannis finished with a career high of 64 points and a casual, sprinkling of 14 rebounds, still having energy after all of that to go chase the Pacers for the game ball, making this a stamp for the coolest rivalry in the league. Fuck, I butchered that. Coolest rivalry in the league? ?
Yeah, this is definitely this is the best rivalry that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Did not expect to see this, but that's what's great about the in-season tournament is getting to see that kind of go down.
Yep.
I'm a little annoyed by Giannis's behavior after that game.
And you're a Giannis guy.
I am a huge Giannis guy. Like, I have his shoes. I got a Funko Pop of him in the office. Read his book.
Yep.
Like, I 100% a Giannis supporter, and I just thought it was a bad look. Understand that it's like the franchise record for points, his career high. He wants the game ball. I guess you want some sort of souvenir to remember it. But I also get the Pacers view where they're like, yeah, screw you guys. You guys were being dicks the last few games. This is a rivalry game.
Yeah.
And Oscar Tshiebwe, who a former Naismith Player of the Year when he was at Kentucky, gets his first official career points. Yeah, I think he has just as a right to that ball as Giannis does. And Giannis is also probably going to score 60 again a couple of times before his career's done. I just wish he would kind of act like he'd been there before. Everything you hear about him is like super humble guy, doesn't care about this sort of stuff. But he was like losing his top about not getting a game ball, and I just thought it was corny.
Yeah, no, he was losing his mind, and like you said, acting like he'd been there before is huge. With a guy who's won himself a championship, a Finals MVP, really weird to see. And correct me if I'm wrong, this was at the Pacers' home stadium, correct?
Yes, it was. It was in Indiana. So
don't they have every single right in the world to decide what they want to do with it?
Whatever they want with that ball.
Yeah, no, I didn't love that from him. I think that with Giannis going into that game, absolutely dominating the first 3 quarters and some change, and them sitting him out, and then Tyrese Halliburton leading his team to a mini comeback, and then Giannis coming back in and just extinguishing any flames that were possibly there.
He also shot like 30 free throws, so it's like, are you really that impressed with this 60-point performance, guy?
No, I hear you. Did you see the Anthony Davis is like real ethical buckets here? It was like
exactly.
0 free throws on 40 points. No, I hear you. But, Giannis, and the reason that I can't hate too much is because how else do you guard Giannis Antetokounmpo? I mean, we kept hearing I think it was the Pacers or the Chicago announcers say over and over, take away his right hand. Like, hey, that's not a super hot take. I think people.
Wow. I didn't. Oh my God, I didn't think of that.
Going back to the Yachty and Drake video. Oh,
yes.
Just
oh my God.
Take away his right.
We didn't even think about that.
He's a behemoth of a man, impossible to stop. It makes sense why he shot 30 free throws. Even though I fucking hate sometimes watching Bucks games because his ass. We recorded it. We watched it recently. Me and one of my best friends were watching the game, and we could have swore on everything we love that he was hitting 11 to 12 seconds. We recorded it. This man has it down to 9.5 seconds every single time on everything I love.
So annoying. I hate how he does the fake shot before he gets the ball. That adds like an extra 5 seconds. Like, bro, that should count.
How is that allowed?
Just shoot the free throw, guy.
Bro, the ref will try to give it to him. He's like, no, hold on.
I've seen him pass the ball back to the ref before.
And it's funny because, pre-championship Giannis, it was a fucking great joke to participate in. I mean, I did it personally. The 1, 2.
Nah, the reason the Suns lost that series to them is because that jabroni with the $100 bills at the Suns game.
Fucking Chad.
Bro, why do you have $1,000 in your pocket at a Suns game? What are you doing? Where are you going?
That's a Chad move right there. I can't lie. Was there anything else you wanted to add on top of this? Did you think that was interesting?
No, I think Halliburton's just come back to earth a little bit. Like, his stats are down just slightly since doing the Dame time celebration against the Bucks last time. So keep an eye out for that. Like, I have not selling any Halliburton stock. Like, he's still one of the best point guards in the league, if not the best, right? So we'll see how they go. I don't think either of us thought the Pacers are necessarily real contenders. So the outcome, it makes sense to me. So, but definitely, I mean, they're going to be on the big TV every time they play the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not multi-viewing any of that.
Not doing that shit. No, impossible to do. And if any other creators tell you that they watch on multi-view, I'm sorry, they that shit is impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it on non-Suns nights. I'll try, but you still miss so much of each game. Like you just don't. You can't understand it. And we like to talk about games we watch. That's kind of what we want our brain to be. Is hey, we watch these games, we talk about them. We're not just going on Twitter and checking box scores.
Strictly stat watching. No, I agree. Can you hit on 30 seconds? I like to revisit this just every few months with the Pacers and the Kings trade. How do you feel like both teams feel? Is it still pretty confident about winning both?
I still think it's. This might sound kind of ludicrous, but it might be like one of the best trades in NBA history, period, where both teams just got exactly what they needed. Halliburton just didn't necessarily fit the Kings timeline and just wasn't not a great fit next to De'Aaron Fox. And Fox is still like one of top. I've seen recently people throwing him on like a top 10 players in the league list.
Yeah.
So he's definitely up there. Sabonis is the third best center in the league. So I think both teams are just still ecstatic. Like Kings fans would have traded anything in the world for that last year, even with a first round exit.
Yes.
But just one of the best trades.
Yeah, just looking at it right now with the Kings being the 5th seed and the Pacers being the 6th seed, both these teams are, outside of that play-in, exactly where you want to be if you're, in that caliber of play. I mean, obviously the Kings made it the 3rd seed last year, but that was just such a wonky year. Like you said, first round exit. But I agree. Up to this point, you can't be mad. You might not love Sabonis' game, but he's balling.
It did take a historic Steph performance to send the Kings home.
Did it. A literal record.
And who knows what happens after that. So the Kings fans should be ecstatic. Pacers fans should be ecstatic. I don't think there's any reason to say that the Kings lost that trade because they did what they had to do to get a team that can be as competitive as possible.
Yeah, great way to finish that. Lastly, with our 4 scores, and I know this is cheating. We usually don't like to do any of our Suns stuff in different categories like this.
This one's a little different.
This one's a little different. We got the 360 no-scope that Draymond Green delivered on our very own Jusef Nurkic. The Suns still came out on top with Josh Okogie leaving the game early, no matter how hard we tried to lose the game, as we touched on earlier. Steve Kerr not playing Wiggins or Clay in the last stretch, and the Warriors' young dudes having some flashes of being successful. Talk to me.
This 100% the story of the game is the Draymond punch, and we already touched on the fourth quarter collapse before, just barely hanging on to that one. But we were watching it. We were at the bar, just celebrating after your graduation.
It was the day of
ceremony, and so watching the game. But you know how it is when you're in a social setting like that. You're maybe not totally locked in, and all of a sudden we see Nurkic just laid out on the ground, and we're like, literally, what? They were just inbounding the ball. What the hell could have happened? And then you see the replay, and it might be the most egregious thing I've seen in the NBA in the last 20 years. And then you hear Draymond's excuse after the press conference. I thought he played it as well as he possibly could.
Yeah, no, that was the most interesting part, right?
Yes, him trying to say, hey, I was just trying to sell the call. I apologize to Jusef, yada, yada, yada. Total bogus. He meant to hit him. He said that the way he was pulling on his hip made him, spin. But he's pulling on the other hip, so he would have turned the opposite way if that was true. And he just clocks him clean in the face. I'm not surprised that he's getting suspended. I don't know how many games it'll turn into. Obviously, it's kind of that indefinite suspension while he gets help. Yeah. We heard Nurkic say it after. Yeah, we need to get that brother some help.
That brother needs help.
A lot of people sound concerned about him. It's a lot of the same dialogue that came out the first time Ja pulled out the gun. Not the second. The second time Ja pulled out the gun, most people were like, all right, bro, you're dumb.
Yeah.
But the first time it was we need to get him some help, yada, yada, yada.
You see all this stuff, treating him like he just smoked crack.
Yeah, right.
I was like, God damn.
So I do want to say, so Ja, after that first suspension, he missed 8 games. Do you think Draymond misses more or less than Ja in that first stretch?
Man, with that first one only being 8 games, I think it's just going to be slightly more. I think they're going to go ahead and hit Draymond Green with a 10-game suspension. I think 15, as much as he is just absolutely off his rocker.
I thought they should have. I honestly was expecting 20 games.
20 games? No, I hear you. Now, I wouldn't be... I wouldn't be out of my chair just if they gave him 20 games, because I understand this is in the past what was it, 2 years, he's had the 4 incidences. He's had the punching of Jordan Poole. He's had the choke out. He's had the stomp out on fucking on Sabonis. And I can't remember which one I'm missing right here. There was another one, but he's just out of control. Not a huge fan of what's going on. And as TJ knows, unironically, Draymond Green was one of my idols playing in high school basketball, and I was the shit talker, the dirty guy, the getting out there on the floor, going for loose balls, making the good passes. But this is just not the Draymond that we love and know. I mean, obviously he's got the kicks and the dicks,
Yeah, that's
not a huge fan of those.
Look. Not a great look. But no, I hear you, and like I've always been more of a Draymond supporter too. Obviously, like never rooted for those Warriors teams, but I really respected what he brought to the team. He's one of the 10 best defenders in NBA history, probably. And just these antics, it's just frustrating. And this is what comes with a guy that plays with that level of intensity. But that's just kind of inexcusable. Like, you got to control yourself a little bit more than that. If you want to get somebody back, like, that's just not the way to do it, especially when Nurkic didn't even really antagonize anything. Like, he's playing normal kind of post defense on that possession.
Yeah, that was the most confusing part for me. I mean, the hip thing might have been there. Like you said, there was a little bit of pulling, but on the opposite hip of where he would have spun off of. It's just another part of that was looking at the bench reaction for the Warriors. You see Dario Saric just absolutely straight-faced.
Yeah, just wide-eyed, like, what the hell? Like,
there's no support from his teammates, and I kind of understand. I mean, at a point, you're just like, fuck, man, what are you doing? Like,
and then Steve Kerr just keeps ducking the questions. Like, and that's the funniest thing about what Gobert said after the choking thing, when he was like, Steve Kerr knows that he's a clown. His teammates knows that he's a clown. They just try to defend him as best they can, but that one was pretty indefensible.
Yeah, well, 1,000%. I had something I wanted to add on. I'm trying to think, but TJ, how do you feel like this? How do you feel that this hurts the Warriors if he misses? Let's meet in the middle here. Let's go 15 games. If he misses 15 games, are we going to go ahead and say that we need to make a move as a dynasty? Yeah, as a former dynasty.
They already have been, having some serious issues with him on the court. He already missed the 5 games earlier, and they're what, 10-13. I don't know what their record is.
I'll look it up right here.
After that Suns game, they were 10-13, I believe. So they could very easily fall into the play-in spot.
10-14 at the 11th seed, right behind our very own Phoenix Suns.
So they're not looking great. So I would have my ears out. I know we talked maybe last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, about the potential Pascal Siakam trade, which I don't love because I don't think he solves enough of their problems. But as of yesterday, apparently Lauri Markkanen might be becoming available very soon, and I think that is somebody that could really help, where he could play the 5 with Draymond on the court, a really good shot blocker, and he can also step out and knock down some big shots, and really you could facilitate some offense through him. Yep. So I think he'd be a great pairing with Steph and those guys. It's just going to be tough to get that deal kind of made. They're going to have to give up probably some substantial picks to Danny Ainge. Probably need to include Wiggins in that, and who knows what kind of value he has now. Yeah. I don't necessarily see them trading Clay. I think they're just going to stay committed to that big 3 and hope that he can figure it out. I think he had 30 fairly recently.
Yep.
So he still has that in the tank. He still has something left in the tank, so I don't think they'll move on him, but it doesn't look good for them now. And if they want to avoid the play-in, like, they're going to have to make a move before the deadline.
Yeah. Let's look at a bigger picture. Do you think that this specific incident right here is going to hurt Steph Curry's chances as a whole of getting that one more ring to put him in that absolute insane echelon of 5 rings?
I am fully ready to bury the Warriors. Like, I'm fully ready to be like, I think it's done.
Okay.
I just don't, like, this team does not look the same as any other team. Even some of those, like, I know they had the bad season right before they won their most recent title. Where they had, like, Nico Mannion was starting games for them.
Shout out.
Shout out to the Arizona boy.
Hey, if y'all know Nico Mannion, this guy glassed him right here in a high school basketball game. I'll go ahead and say it.
The YouTube video is also titled "Nico Mannion Dismantles Mesa High School." So, Ball is Life National High School Game of the Week, by the way. So, plenty of viewers saw us get throttled by that guy. But yeah, I think the Warriors are cooked. They're going to be in the play-in most likely. I feel bad for Chris Paul getting his ass kicked by them all those years. You finally get over there thinking that it's going to be sweet, and this is what he comes up to.
Shit ain't sweet.
And Steph just seems frustrated with his teammates too. Like, there was the leaked audio of him being like, "Can we get a stop, please?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we get it? Like, we suck."
Yeah, just full throttle. And you know, there's been some discourse around Steph Curry as a voice for the organization. You know, LeBron is very comfortable with making his organizations uncomfortable to be able to make moves. Giannis, we've been shown that he's very comfortable making his organization uncomfortable. Do you feel like Steph needs to step up, or do you think it's already happened? How do you feel?
I think to an extent, because after that game, I believe Mike Dunleavy, their GM, came out and said that, hey, we got 15 to 20 games to kind of figure this out before we really start hitting the panic button.
Yeah,
is basically what the messaging that I got out of that was. So that's 15 to 20 games for Clay and Wiggins to really step it up.
Shit, I bet she turns into 10 if they lose, 9 more.
No kidding, right? No kidding.
All right, so those are our last 4 right there. I did want to do one more question after, not about this 4 scores, but just a little bit of a bullshitting section of the video. What was the juiciest story this week?
I think the juiciest is probably the Pacers-Bucks rivalry.
Yeah.
But I do think the most kind of important or the most interesting is the Zion game, them beating the Wolves. The Wolves hype has died off just a tad, thinking about where we were a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But that it was just the reminder that Zion can still put up these big numbers, and that's why we want him to be healthy. And that's why I think what Stephen A is doing is more negative than positive, where you need to come out and say, hey, like, we want you to be healthy because we're fans of this game. You're an amazing talent, and we want to see you out there competing at a high level.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I think the motto for watching the NBA is just enjoy basketball.
Exactly. Appreciate it, man.
Enjoy basketball. This is an absolute generational talent that we could see excelling if he does want to go ahead and put in that work. And like I said, if it's an issue, mentally with however, the food stuff goes, then let's get him help. I don't think the berating, if you look at any research, even with obese people, berating people down to the court, it doesn't work. That's not how people lose weight. That's not how people get motivated to do stuff like that. So I just think we could be better as, NBA media as a whole, with us now being in that sphere, the new generation of us. Let's lift people up. So I'm glad you like the Bucks versus Pacers one. That was my personal favorite too. There's not enough rivalries in the NBA.
No,
not real ones. This feels like real.
Absolutely real. Very, very, very personal. I mean, Halliburton and Giannis are directly talking shit to each other after the game about the specific situation. Like, it's awesome.
So cool. All right. And the last thing, just kind of the bullshitting section of the pod. I wanted to go back and touch on what you were saying with Lauri Markkanen. There have been rumors, and this had my jaw dropping right here, that the Oklahoma City Thunder is interested in Lauri Markkanen. Oof. And if anybody has the resources to make it happen, it is this team. Mm-hmm. TJ, how do you feel about sticking him at the 4?
I think that would be him and Chet next to each other would just be ridiculous. I don't know how much I love it. I think just because he operates in such a similar manner to Chet, like, I think they could step on each other's toes a little bit. So I don't know if that's necessarily the deal I would make. It also kind of depends on the Josh Giddey situation.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on there if they're going to move him.
But I think he's already going to be the odd one out, right? The odd man out in that situation. It looks like.
We broke down their contracts last week. So we'll see. Obviously, it would make them that much more competitive in the West and probably elevate them to a next higher tier, a little bit closer to contender status. But I also don't think that they don't need to sell the farm to bring in Lauri Markkanen when, who knows who's going to be coming available in these next few months. It can all happen real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any other teams that you'd like to see Lauri on that's realistic? I mean, we already talked about the Warriors. We don't know what the contract situation or how realistic that might be with the picks. Obviously, OKC has the means to do it. Is there anybody else you'd really like to see, or are those just the two there?
Would he be interesting next to Embiid in Philly?
Ooh.
I think that could be pretty interesting. Him being like the third wheel to Maxey Embiid.
God, I like that spacing.
Yeah, and he's playing the 4. Like, that could be a real problem.
Embiid has just improved in his passing this past year, kind of tremendously. I mean, the stats might only say like 2.5 more assists up, but 2.5 more buckets. That's generating at least 6 more points at the very least.
Yeah, the Suns don't have the assets to get it done.
Nope.
I don't know if the Bucks do. That would be another interesting one. Obviously, he's kind of thinking about the contenders and how it would impact the league the most. So yeah, we'll I guess just kind of wait and see.
We'll have to see. That's awesome. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was, I'm not sure if you got to see it at all last night. I know we were watching the Suns game, but Dylan Brooks did get his own tribute video over there with Memphis.
And then gets the revenge hitting that dagger at the end to seal it.
That's why they pay me. That's what he said. That's why they pay me over here. I thought it was kind of sick. A lot of people were like, what the fuck? Why is Dylan Brooks getting his own? He was the embodiment of Memphis for a long time, being that evil villain team. And the whole reason was most people love Ja. Most people love Jaren Jackson. Most people love Desmond Bane. But motherfuckers hated Dylan Brooks so much that they were looked at as villains.
Yeah, I think, and if he was there for what, like 4-ish years?
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a tribute video, guys. Why are people free? Oh, he got a tribute. Oh my God, that's just disgusting. Bro, relax. Please relax and enjoy. But touch some grass.
Go touch some grass. That's our second favorite quote here right now. Go touch some fucking grass.
Yes.
That's funny. All right. Any other final thoughts you wanted to wrap up on this pod?
No, I think the Suns have a path to turning things around. Just need more continuity. We'll wait to see how long Beal's going to be out for this stretch, but I'm still hopeful.
I'm so hopeful too. I gotta be. You know, what is it? What is being a fan of a team without hope? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
At the end of the day. But that's gonna wrap it up for episode 11. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. You know, I'm glad we got to do a double-digit episode with TJ here, live and in person. Always glad to have my man here. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, you have a phenomenal rest of your day.